Hi, I am Chelsea Mulligan, and this is Retail Revelations on the Beard Bros Media Network. Please go find your news on beardbrosfarms.com and check out their fabulous RSO products in California, Missouri, and Massachusetts. Today, we are going to talk about marketing and retail and how often those teams aren't usually on the same page. But before we dive into the meat and potatoes, I would like to bring on our wonderful guest today, Lissa Satori. Hi, Lissa.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Chelsea.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and what you're currently doing.
Well, I realized this morning that it was 10 years ago that I probably met you right about this time. I grew up in Ohio and we had no cannabis in Ohio that was legal for the whole time I was growing up. And in 2012, I got very, very angry about the lack of patient access. And so at that point in time, I got involved in activism and advocacy, which I was able to parlay into a professional career in cannabis reform. I got paid to change cannabis laws for a couple of years, which was great. And then I did pretty much everything. I call myself a Jill of all trades. When folks ask me what I did for a living, I would say turn on a dime, because as anyone that has worked in cannabis for a while knows, that's what we all do for a living, is turn on a dime. But I did a lot of different work in cannabis policy with standards and a heck of a lot of consulting. I've worked with a ton of businesses, large and small, with their local municipalities, developing ordinances and helping folks get through the licensing process. And also sent a whole bunch of people home that said, hey, do I want to get into the industry? And the answer was a resounding no after they were educated a little bit. And I live in Michigan. I have a daughter and a dog and a cat, which may make an appearance here at some point in time. And I currently am a senior marketing manager for one of the largest cannabis companies in the world. So
Wonderful. Thank you for introducing yourself. I realized while you were introducing yourself that since it's episode 1 for me, I forgot my intro. So a little bit about me, just so everyone who's listening knows, I have open managed or triaged over 50 dispensaries on my own. With teams, I have been in over 87 licenses across the country, and this includes also 10 manufacturing facilities and 11 cultivation facilities. Lissa and I actually met before Focus, actually, through Women Grow. And then we both worked with Focus, interacting with legislatures, regulators, FDA inspectors. And I was lucky enough to be one of the ones that wrote the hemp model code for the FDA through Focus. Since the pandemic, I have continued my operations and compliance consulting, and I also do receivership work. But my true passion is individual operators. And I have a knack for cannabis operations and compliance consulting. My soapbox is employee management. I love giving them an environment to thrive in and grow in and feel like they are making a difference. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you for listening. Tell me what brought you to your current role.
Well, like I mentioned before, I got very angry about the lack of patient access, and particularly for the most vulnerable among us, the pediatric patients. And so there was a little boy by the name of Cash Hyde from Montana, and he lost his battle with cancer in 2012. But I followed that family's journey for the year before his death, and really watched how that family was persecuted because of their choice of natural treatments to make Cash's experience as good as it could be, symptom management there towards the end. And I watched how law enforcement dealt with them at the time of Cash's passing. And, they say there's nothing like a woman scorned. That lit a fire in me that got me involved. I then went on to work with what was Ohio's premier cannabis advocacy organization at the time, Ohio Rights Group. And I became the executive director of that group and activated 88 counties worth of volunteers and collected over 150,000 signatures without a single penny worth of funding. And yeah, like I said, you get somebody really angry about something, right? And through that process, I met a lot of the parents and the children of the kids in my own state that really needed legal access to this medicine. And so when Marijuana Policy Project decided to come to Ohio and bring a ballot initiative to our state, I was hired on as the director of outreach for that campaign. And that was coming off of the heels of the Responsible Ohio Amendment, which folks will remember as the most controversial and vicious amendment that was ever put forward in the United States of America as far as a cannabis reform law. And when I worked for MPP, we were able to bring all the warring factions together underneath the same umbrella to work for Ohioans for medical marijuana. That was the group that actually scared the state of Ohio enough so badly that they passed their own medical law, which is where we've been operating for the last couple of years in Ohio. After that happened, I moved up to Michigan and I was part of the campaign team that passed the adult use law in the state of Michigan. So that was, I finally got my victory on election night, and I was able to move on to do all of that consulting that I talked about, as well as working with Focus. And when the opportunity came to join a corporate team, I really looked at it as the opportunity to, I've always been of the opinion that you can either be on a dinghy at the mercy of the waves, or you can be on the ship within screaming distance of the captain and be able to actually influence things on a larger scale. And I've always taken every opportunity that I could to sit at those tables. And I have really enjoyed my experience over the last 4 years. I have learned an absolute ton being in this position. And yeah, that's how I ended up where I am right now doing what I'm doing.
I resonate with that so incredibly much because I think a lot of people look at me and I come from corporate America, but very few know that I have been smoking since 17 and I use it medicinally and I very much am part of the culture and I believe in it and I believe there's a place for the culture. I also think I have been so successful just like you because I can marry the two and I can sit at those tables and be within screaming distance of the captain.
You know what is really interesting is watching the next generation come up. And some of these folks are going directly from college or from high school, and their first job is in cannabis.
It's so mind-blowing.
If someone would have asked me, they always say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I would have known if I knew that being in the cannabis industry was even a possibility or a sparkle in somebody's eye at the age of 16, that would have been my response every single time. But I didn't even know that our dream job would even exist, that it would be a possibility. And yet here we are doing what we're doing.
Same. It's to me, it's still mind-blowing every day. Tell me what your favorite, you've worked in different parts, right? You've done the advocacy, you've done the campaigns, you've done Focus. Tell me what your favorite part about working in the marketing part of this is.
So let me first just kind of preface this by saying that during this and any time I talk, really, I'm speaking for myself. I'm certainly not speaking on behalf of my employer. My views may be very different from those of my employer. And also, I'm not a traditional marketer. I came through my younger life as a social worker, working in children's services and then selling windows. I don't have a marketing degree at all. So with the help of my mentors at my current job, it's all been kind of self-taught and only over 4 years. So y'all are talking to a girl who had to look up marketing acronyms on Google when she first became a marketer, because I had no idea what folks were talking about when they would, do marketing speak. So that being said, what I love most about being in a marketing role is I like working with partners and I like building things out of people. I have always been one, as you know, from our time working together. The systems for me and on my team are always going to be built around the individuals that are operating with those systems, because you're not going to put a square peg in a round hole, I guess is the statement. The beautiful thing about my situation over the last 4 years and what I've enjoyed the most is getting to utilize resources and opportunities in a way that plays respect to our legacy partners and get to spend money with small businesses that I've watched come up from the day that they opened, and getting to do a lot of the CSR portion of marketing. And different companies function different ways. Where I work, marketing does get to touch a lot of cross-functional situations. And so I've gotten to do everything from help negotiate sponsorships and partnerships with small state theaters to getting to spearhead being able to give the Detroit Homegrown Fund that helps legacy operators actually get their licenses, give them $50,000. We got to support the Great Lakes Expungement Network in a very big way financially, because we do have the type of resources that we do and ability to raise money for that. So that's really been my favorite part, is getting to highlight quality people and give them work and opportunities. Mm-hmm.
I love that so much. Okay, so let's jump into our big topic of today. Historically, retail staff and marketing teams become adversarial or are not on the same page. What are some creative solutions or tactics? I don't really like the word tactics, but you use to bring them together as a team and to be able to respect each other and move fluidly together?
So I think this is such a great topic. And I think we need to preface it by acknowledging that there are operators of all different sizes across our country. And so this is going to look different for someone who is a marketing manager over 5 states worth of retail shops versus a single state operator that might have 1 or 2 or 3, stores. But I think the primary things that you need to think about when you're trying to build a good relationship remain basically the same between all types of operators. And the first is to understand that everything is based on relationships. And that relationship between marketing and retail starts with relationship between people, right? And so what I found in my life is candor is always appreciated an absolute ton. And the other thing that is appreciated is when there's tension in a room, the way to diffuse it often is acknowledging it
Mm-hmm.
and talking about it and being grown-ups, right? So I think when you're dealing with a situation where that relationship is already fractured within an organization, the first step is to acknowledge it. And whether you are a senior marketing manager and you sit down with the retail district manager and have that conversation to start with, or whether you are doing marketing for a single shop and you sit down with the GM, you have an honest conversation, admit any mistakes that you have made personally or that your department has made, take responsibility for those, and ask the question of what can we do to repair this? And that all starts with respect and it starts with communication.
I very much agree. You come from the marketing side and I come more from the retail side. Yeah, I did marketing for 9 months just to learn it. Not something I enjoy. I am not creative minded. I am operational minded. But I love that you kind of look at it like you need to be a team, because you do. And in cannabis, I think that our industry has missed that a little bit. Just like often, in a vertically integrated state, which there's not very many, but Arizona is one, and I helped build that market. And all licenses are vertically integrated, and cultivation and retail often become adversarial the same way marketing and retail do. So, like, our industry has kind of created that persona for itself that has continued. But I think each company can do a little bit of the things we're talking about today to make that a seamless process, right? I know my biggest thing is setting realistic goals and understanding, like, how do you implement things? Like, same way when I come in as a consultant, some people have SOPs and I'm like, well, they don't really tell you where to go, what to click, how to do. And did the person writing this actually go do your job as a bud tender or manager to truly understand what it feels like to be boots on the ground?
Mhm.
Do you spend time often in the retails understanding that and interacting with them? Is that part of your job?
So probably not as much as I should. And I think that a lot of folks can say that. I've got to give a quick shout out to some people that used to be on my team and have moved on to other opportunities, but Annie Decanter and Caleb Kraczynski. Both of them, when I started working in Illinois and in the Chicago area, I inherited them onto my team. And both of them had been hired from retail. And so when they saw me getting a little off the rails or not understanding how our retail staff and associates would perceive something, we had again relationship, a good enough relationship that they'd be like, hey boss, you're not thinking about this right. Think about these three things over here that you don't know because you were never a retail employee and we were. So, when I talk about how do you actually go through and what do you do after you establish respect and rapport and there's an acknowledgement of wanting to repair things, it's a whole bunch of eyes. It's, identify, like you said, the goals and identify really how that benefits the retail team. And we can go more into detail with that. The other I would be to include. And that is everything from including your retail people in the decisions about who to support, who to hire, what events to take part in, which tumbler to choose for the gift with purchase because they like blue rather than green. All of those things, you include them in every step of the process when it comes to the marketing initiatives. And then you inform them because while they may have a whole bunch of suggestions and how they think that they want things done, you're the marketing professional. And in the end, it is you that has to answer to the marketing KPIs and to the marketing department boss and, all of those things. And so if you make a decision, you inform them, A, of the decision, B, of the whys. Think about how you might feel if, oh, because I said so is the answer to anything. And so if there's not budget for something and I was really excited about it and I was, making plans with them and then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled, I'm going to be honest with the retail staff and say, look, guys, I know that we all really wanted to do this. Here's the actual reasons why we aren't doing that, which builds that trust. And, again, respect back and forth. And then the back end of it is the inquire part. Once you actually activate something or you make a plan and then you execute on it, if you don't ask your retail partners on the back end, hey, how did this work for you? What can we improve next time? What, all of those things, and you actually inquire and solicit that feedback. Again, it's building that value added relationship. They feel heard, they feel valued, and then you don't ignore them. You actually read what they say, listen to what they say, and think about all of the information in front of you at that point in time and continue to improve moving forward.
I don't want to dig into this much, but I think it's important to notate because you said, you explain the why. And I think the explanation of why is kind of new in the workplace in the last 7 to 10 years, probably 7 years more than anything, but maybe 10 years. Workplace culture 10 to 20 years ago was shut up and do it. and you don't need a why. Here's what you do. And we don't give a shit if you don't like it.
You can't get that away with that these days.
No. And I kind of appreciate that it
Mhm.
evolved, right? It opens up conversation and dialogue and feedback and everything that you're talking about. And some people get annoyed that they have to explain the why. I actually very much enjoy it because often I see the light bulb come on as you're explaining, even if they didn't agree at the beginning or they didn't understand. So I'm
Mhm.
really glad that you touched on that. I apologize, but you said one that we could dig into. I think it was identify. Was that the one? Or am
So,
I wrong?
well, we can dig into any of them, but when you're talking about identifying things, okay, you've had the conversation with the district manager or with the general manager of your store. At that point in time, I think a lot of the disconnect between retail and marketing is the retail teams don't understand how A, marketing affects them, B, marketing affects their customers, and C, and maybe the biggest thing is how it benefits them with their own goals. So I don't know about everybody else, but I know that a lot of the companies that I am familiar with, the retail staff gets bonuses, and those bonuses are based on sales numbers. So it's a really, really great thing when you're able to, as a marketer, say, okay, hey, I'm going to give away this gift with purchase this week. And it is meant to raise the average transaction value. And you guys are this far away from your monthly bonus. If we all work together and make this happen, you help me reach my ATV KPI that my boss is asking about. We're going to work with you to get you over your bonus and get you your money. So let's all work together and go, right? And now we have a mutual goal. And instead of it being us versus them, it's a team working towards that goal.
The epitome of teamwork right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing you didn't touch on, but I'd love to discuss because I have found I kind of have needed from marketing teams in the past, and that I end up creating myself for my staff just because I understand marketing enough, right? Enough to be dangerous, not to do your job. Is providing instructions and maybe not scripting them, because I truly believe employees should be able to have their own voice, but the company voice has to come through them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you provide those instructions for maybe certain campaigns you're doing for getting email addresses or campaigns for anything else?
So communication is so important. And I have found that it's the biggest benefit to have verbal communication and then follow it up in writing with a deck, with pictures, with step-by-step instructions. And that's going to look different with a, hey, sign up for our emails campaign, to a gift with purchase campaign or punch cards, something like that. In all situations, though, you have to remember how much stress the retail team is under, how fast-paced their environment is. Half the time, they don't have time to read your stinking emails. So what's going to happen a lot of the times is the general manager or a lead is going to print off whatever single page instruction thing marketing sent to them, and they're going to put it somewhere and hope everybody reads it. So first thing is create that single page thing for them. Make it easy for the leadership of the store to share it out with the teams, or make an ally at the store that isn't in leadership that agrees to kind of be your marketing megaphone. You identify your people and enlist help from them. When you're asking a store to display something, put it together yourself on your desk and take a photograph of exactly what you want done with it. And I'll share with you a little story of why I feel strongly about that. We had created a floor decal that was in the shape of one of our products. It was a sticker that would go on the floor, and basically you use it to mark the pathway within the shop in order to get to the point of sale, right? For a product launch. So I send a note out to 20 stores and say, hey, can you all send me pictures of these neat little cutouts that we sent to you? And one of the photographs that came back was a plain white wall with one of these things just stuck on it, on the wall, which then caused us to have to fix the paint on the wall, So always, always, always be really, really, really simple. Keep it super simple. List out the instructions. Remember, they do not have any idea what you are talking about. And this is the first time they've seen this sticky thing. So make sure that they know what is coming, how to use it, and be very clear on dates. And then remind on the back end. If it's a week-long campaign, I'm going to ask on Wednesday, hey, how's this going? Because you're going to catch the folks that say, oh, shoot, I forgot about that. And there's still 3 days, of the campaign to execute something at that point.
Very true, especially when dealing with multiple locations. There's always going to be a couple.
Mm-hmm.
What else would you like to share with us about how you connect with the retail team and make that a successful interaction?
I want to go back to the include thing again. What I have found is that if you include the retail team, not just in deciding what color tumbler, right? But also, we do a lot of offsite events and they can be really fun. Sometimes it's a Billy Strings concert at a campground in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes it is a Rocky Horror Picture Show booth. Sometimes it's working the local festival. But we do a lot of fun stuff. And our retail teammates spend a whole lot of time in stores. And so instead of hiring an outside agency, a lot of times it's a really, really great bridge builder to invite our retail partners to work those booths with us, to be at that event with us. I'll give you another example. We negotiated a partnership with the Salt Shed, which recently won Best New Music Venue in the country, but it's a really, really cool place in Chicago. And part of that sponsorship has historically been for us to get tickets. Well, last year, I organized a contest for our stores. And the winning store, every single person on their staff got their choice of a summer ticket to one of those shows. And we also had the store folks come and work shows with us because we had, a table at the concert. And that there, A, again, contributes to the relationship. B, is a reward for them. So that week when they're in the store and 100 coupons are coming in that somebody picked you up at the Salt Shed and they are dealing with the headache of whatever the problem is with it, they're going to have that teammate be like, yeah, but that show on Saturday was bomb, and wait till you get to work it and get that enthusiasm up. So I really encourage people to get their retail staff out of those shops whenever they can and use that as kind of a reward for folks that go above and beyond.
I agree. We're coming to the end quickly because, of course, but you and I could chat all day. One thing I'd like to touch on just briefly, because you and I have both been here for longer than a decade, and I'd like to talk about how the retail landscape has changed. Not necessarily from state to state, but I just remember when I started in late 2012, we had hash, we had flour, we had hard candies and cookies. There were not vape pens or anything like that. And everything seems super medicinal or like a smoke shop. And with you working for a larger corporation now that does have, branding and an in-store experience, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how that has evolved over the last 10 years.
So, when I first started, my dream was to have a chain of retail shops in my home state of Ohio. Because again, I wanted to bring the medicine to the community that I loved and to the patients that I got to know and fought for all of those years. And it's been really neat to watch a lot of those early ideas that I had when we were helping write the retail standards, for Focus back in 2014, before the first version was even, put together. It's been really cool to watch a lot of those things that were in my own plan and what I wanted for my patients in my state actually come to fruition, and not always in the way that I envisioned, but an example, when we were first founding the Ohio Hemp Chamber of Commerce, we put a QR code on the back of a pack of Heartland hemp seeds. And that QR code, when scanned, would take you to the paperwork from when it crossed the border from Canada, to the test results. It would even give you a little pinpoint within 15 miles of where the field was, where that particular pack of seeds was grown. And that level of accountability and transparency, I think we're still striving towards that in the current market, right? But I sure do see QR codes on a lot of packages these days. And whereas my very first purchase was made in a shop in Denver that looked like a house, and you'd walk up on the front porch. It was called the Clinic. You walk up on the front porch, and then you'd walk into the living room, and there was a little desk, and here's another desk, and there's mason jars on the countertop. And while I miss a lot of things about the early days, I also think it's really, really cool that I can send my retiree mother into a store and say, get this product, and this product is going to be the same every time you get it, because we are now getting to the point where things are becoming standardized. There are products for every person on the market. There are products that are made by mom and pops that are, niche products that someone like me that's a connoisseur is going to really go after. And then there's stuff for my mom who literally wants a pill and she wants it to be the same every single time. And we're doing good things for the consumers. And the big thing is we are working hard to take away the stigma and to bring the benefits of this plant to the mainstream folks, and the good that comes from getting the plant into more people's hands, especially patients. It's worth the struggle.
I very much agree. Okay, so just to summarize, by the way, I liked your different version of KISS. I loved that. Keep it super simple. Loved that. So just so all of our listeners can kind of hear a recap, keep it super simple. Make sure you give the why, be involved, engage, verbal conversation, and then always written conversation afterwards. And visual pictures are always a great thing, especially because you never know, right? In my retail stabs, I always have people that are visual learners, audio learners, and then just hands-on learners, and the other two don't work for them. So creating something in all of those different categories so you hit each of those employees is so very important. So I'm glad you touched on that. Tell our listeners where they can find you.
Oh, so you can find me on LinkedIn just by searching my name. Facebook, the same way. I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm still on Facebook quite often. Instagram less, but I am not so mellow yellows on Instagram with a dot in between each of the words.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for listening to Lissa and I today. It was nice for her and I to be able to chat, and I hope you guys all learned something from us. You can find me at the Dispensary Whisperer on Instagram, Chelsea Mulligan on LinkedIn, or chelseamulligan.com. And again, please go take a look at Beard Bros Farms on Instagram, follow them on LinkedIn, sign up for their Friday Sesh newsletter on their website, beardbrosfarms.com. They are a multi-state brand now. So if you're in California, Missouri, or Massachusetts, grab one of their RSO products. And I think that is it. So thank you for spending time with the Dispensary Whisperer and Lissa Satori, and have a fabulous day.